Hello YouTube friends, Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. And today I want to talk with you about my thoughts about a heavily stocked tank, like the one across from me over here, or a lightly stocked tank, like the one you see here behind me. There are advantages and disadvantages to each one. Let's go ahead and get into it now, and I want to hear what you have to say about it in the comments below. Let's go ahead and start. So this is the 60-gallon African cichlid tank, and it's something that you would consider a very lightly stocked tank. It doesn't really have a lot of fish in it. And what's the advantage of a tank like that? Well, the first and most obvious advantage is that it's very, very calm. And if you're looking for something very, very calm, certainly light stocked is the way to go, especially if there are fish that are relatively peaceful and get along with each other. These normally do. Occasionally you see a chase every now and then, like you would with any cichlid, but for the most part these fish get along fine. So you can sit around and relax and enjoy this tank and not have a lot going on, at the same time have it be very, very enjoyable. The other advantage of a tank like this is that you don't have to worry too much about the absolute positively strict maintenance schedule. I mean, you should always stay on your schedule, but the truth is a tank like this, you could, if you had to for some reason, miss a week and you'd be okay. And by that what I mean is, let's say you got busy and you couldn't quite get around to it, you had to miss a week. This tank is not going to all of a sudden blow up on you. You're not going to get a big spike in nitrates because you missed one water change. It's not going to happen, especially when a tank like this has the kind of filtration this tank has: 2 canisters and a hang-on back filter. So this tank is very, very heavily filtered, so you're not going to get a lot of spikes. Whereas a very, very heavily stocked tank, like the tank behind me, this is the 100-gallon, and this tank would very much be considered a heavily stocked tank. And of course, the advantages of a tank that's heavily stocked like this is just the amount of activity, the amount that you have going on. There's like never a dull moment with a tank like this. There's so much action and movement and color. So that's a big plus point in a tank like this. The downside is that it's not really forgiving when it comes to maintenance. You better stay on top of your maintenance on a heavily stocked tank, because you can very quickly have just a surge in nitrates, especially when you have tanks that are, fish in your tank that are producing so much waste and ammonia like you have with these African cichlids. The other advantage of a heavily stocked tank is that you have aggression that is spread around. So you don't have fish that can single out one fish very easily and go after them. It just doesn't happen that often because there's just so much going on that it's so hard for a fish to really stay on just one fish. And so for that reason, a heavily stocked tank tends to be very preferred by your African cichlid keepers, because they like to spread that out. They don't want to have one fish singled out and really beaten up badly. In the larger 150-gallon tank right now, which would be considered by African cichlid keeper standards a lightly stocked tank, I have a situation like that going on where the trout beat up the Fusco, and if I had had perhaps another 6-7 fish in there, that might have been spread out a little bit differently. So there are advantages to a heavily stocked tank, certainly in the area of aggression. And the only big disadvantage is that you really have no buffer, no real room for being at all laxed in your maintenance. You have to be really on top of it because it can spin out of control very, very quickly. So those are my thoughts on a heavily stocked versus lightly stocked tank. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Be sure to share them below in the comments. I'd like to hear them. And be sure to rate and sub if you haven't already. Hit that bell and hit that subscription that subscription icon, and that way you'll be sure to get notified when I upload new material. Also, I hope to see you on Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific time for the Cichlids and Coffee live stream. We can talk about this subject and other subjects as well. So certainly share down below what you think about a heavily stocked tank versus a lightly stocked tank. Which one do you prefer and why? I'd love to hear it, and I'm sure everybody else would like to read your comments as well. All right, that's it for me. Thank you so much. I will catch you next time.